And I struggled with my mental health quite a lot in high school. And so as that happened, I realized that I got this weird clarity. Oh, life is really short. Why am I here? What am I doing? Am I creatively fulfilled? Am I doing the things that mean something to me?
You find like acting is also like therapeutic too.
There's something that happens when the camera starts rolling. All of the inhibitions leave me, and I get to be the most raw, unencumbered human version of myself in the form of a character. Anger is a very complex emotion that we demonize quickly. It's really important to have that anger, and I think it makes us human.
Yeah, it's powerful when you step into and have the realization of doing something bigger than yourself. Because at times where you may lack energy doing the thing that you love to do, you can source energy from the impact that you're making on other people.
You could do like Bali, impact it had on people all around the world, and the meaning that it brought and the way that people resonated with it, that's incredibly meaningful to me. And
do you find being a paramedic really helped you deal with high pressure situations? So when you stepped into acting,
and to be able to dance between the space of humanity, empathy, emotion, and support, to be able to do that, I think has absolutely helped me with acting. You get more comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And I want to feel comfortable in the uncomfort, because the only constant thing we're going to have is change. To own your chaos and to find your own clarity within the chaos, it's so calming, because I'm authentically like expressing myself in a very raw human way that's flawed and unique to me. Then someone somewhere is probably going to resonate with that.
The actions that we do today give evidence to our future self.
Welcome to the OneTalk podcast with Ryan McCarthy.
Thank y'all. The marathon continues. Victory lap tonight, though. Victory lap tonight.
Welcome to the OneTalk podcast with Ryan McCarthy.
The marathon continues. That's what you would say.
Welcome to the OneTalk podcast. Saskia Archer, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, thank you. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I've took a bit of a deep dive in your work lately, and I was watching Bali 2002, and that was probably the first time I've felt so like emotionally involved in a TV series or a movie since the World Trade Center movie with Nicolas Cage. And it was like such a good movie, and yeah, I'm just really keen to dive into today's episode and have a chat around acting, your life, and why you got into it.
Yeah, totally. I'd love to, especially Bali. That's one of my most loved and treasured projects that I've ever done.
Yeah, but a bit of a backstory. What was the reason you got into acting in the first place? Like, what was the first thing that really sparked that inspiration for you?
Well, interestingly, it wasn't part of the plan. I had left high school in Sydney and gone like I graduated, and then I went to study paramedics in Tasmania, and I just wanted to get out and get started on my life. And I was well on my way to doing that when I had a friend who pushed me into acting, and then I was scouted by an agent, and all just kind of cascaded a little bit. And I decided better give it a shot, and then I'll just go back to paramedics. But lo and behold, I haven't, because it's been going well and I've been really enjoying it. But the reason I think I gravitated towards it, which is maybe a better answer to your question, is I think intrinsically it was always in my bones that I wanted to help people or to do something meaningful with what I understand it to mean to be human. And when I was doing paramedics, it made sense because I was helping people in a time of need and, possibly extending their lives, and being there in a time of crisis. But to progress into art was a really interesting space because it created a further depth in my opinion, to helping people, because you're telling and you're giving meaning to stories, to people's lives, to why they are the way they are. Well, art reflects life and life reflects art, and you start to challenge the comfortable and comfort the challenged, and it creates a depth that I was able to access in acting that I wasn't able to access in paramedics. And the reason that I stayed on this journey is because that's more aligned with my values, I think, than paramedics was. Just in terms of depth and meaning. For me personally, it's different for everyone, but I would rather live a short life that's super meaningful and like fiery than a long kind of dull, drawn out
Yeah.
nothingness.
Yeah, it's powerful when you step into and have the realization of doing something bigger than yourself. Because at times where you may lack energy doing the thing that you love to do, you can source energy from the impact that you're making on other people, right? And that's the powerful thing of when you're in
I
a line
love
of
that.
work where you are doing it for other people as well as yourself.
And you have the power to impact a huge amount more people. Like, for example, if I did a shift in paramedics, it would be an average of maybe 12 patients, between 6 and 12 patients for a shift. But you could do like Bali. That series was close to global, and the impact it had on people all around the world, and the meaning that it brought, and the way that people resonated with it, and the fact that people felt that their stories were being told, even the ones that weren't in Bali, uh, that's incredibly meaningful to me. And just that access to more people is, and to make impact on more people is great and powerful and a privilege.
That's it, like you said, it's a privilege. It's a good way to word it. But also working in a movie or TV series, sorry, like Bali 2002, where it is based on real life and you are working as a character that did experience these things, I can imagine you would have felt a lot of pressure in that situation. But do you find being a paramedic really helped you deal with high pressure situations? So when you stepped into acting, it really conditioned you for it?
Firstly, that is an amazing question. Thank you. Um, and absolutely, I think doing my time as a paramedic, being able to navigate extremely stressful situations where people are literally dying in front of you, and being able to stay calm, navigate your own emotions with that, and be present and do the thing that needs to be done. Just the skill set of being able to separate yourself and bring yourself back in when you need to, because for me there was like a bit of a line down the center of my body and my spirit, if you will. And on one side it was all the medicine. It was, how much, how the math of how much drug to give someone on a particular, how much they weigh, how tall they are, how you've got to act quickly, you've got to do that math quickly, and you have to get it right. And then you have to get the pressure cuff on, you've got to get the cannula in, which is the needle. You got to be quick, you got to be on it. But then there's the other side, and that's the humanity of it, where I'm like, I need to hold this guy's hand and I need him to know that I've got his back and it's going to be okay, or it's going to be as okay as it possibly can be. And to be able to dance between the space of type A and also humanity, empathy, emotion, and support, in because this is a moment of crisis, right? He's terrified. To be able to do that, I think, has absolutely helped me with acting, because then when you're performing, you're kind of doing this space. You're navigating this space of the math that was paramedics is now the, okay, which mark do I need to meet? What's the director asking me? Where do I need to look? Why does that eye need to be lit with that light? Like, why do I need to be here? Okay, great. That's what I'm doing here. Can I see my cast member? Can they see me? All of that. But then the other side is the humanities. Like, am I feeling the scene? Am I here present with this person in front of me? Do they know that I'm here with them? So absolutely, it's hugely informed in a way that I don't think I've recognized probably until
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, well, that's amazing because I can imagine as well, like as a paramedic and acting, there's so many variables you have to take into account in one moment. So, like you said, as a actress, you got to think about the production, the lighting, the scene, memorize the lines. But then as a paramedic, you got to think about the surroundings. This person's safe. Do we have to do CPR? Do we have to compress this certain area of the body? Like, there's so many elements you have to focus on. And I feel like when you are able to work in a profession like a paramedic and deal with high pressure situations, that could probably serve you in so many areas of your life. So I can imagine if you do have, I guess, a bit of a chaotic time in your own personal life, it probably contributes to that as well, and just being able to manage your own life as well as your professional life.
Absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head, and I'm so grateful for that time because I feel so prepared in chaotic moments. I've moved cities like a bunch, and like right now I'm in New York, and navigating the change in different cultures as well, and being having to do the type A side, which is like getting set up with a new bank account, getting set up with, the equivalent of tax file number here, the social security number, getting new bank accounts, like licenses, all of that. But then also like, why am I here? What am I doing? Am I creatively fulfilled? Am I doing the things that mean something to me? Which projects do I want to work on? Like all of those things intersecting, and how you manage what you need to do with what you want to do, so you stay aligned with the journey that's important to you, constantly helps me. Because if I couldn't navigate the chaos, I don't think I'd be fit for this career.
Mm. And you have to navigate the chaos because the saying that I love is in order to get to peace, you have to master chaos, right? So you can't get to the peace or the light in life unless the chaos is mastered within itself first.
I love that. What a beautiful quote.
For yourself,
And I
like,
agree with
oh,
you.
sorry, you keep going.
I was just going to say that when you find your clarity in chaos, I have a journal that I wrote. It's specifically for ADD people, but it's to try and help channel your chaos into clarity, and like how to put your thoughts down in a way, and your work down in a way that you can actually execute with what's important for you. And it's the chaos to clarity and finding that space. And it's not trying to get rid of the chaos because we have it inside of us, especially as creatives. And to own your chaos and to find your own clarity within the chaos, it's so calming because the seas come down and you're like, I know where I'm going. Even if it's rough, I still know though. So it's okay. Doesn't really
Yeah.
matter if it's rocking the boat because I see where I'm headed. I think the danger is when we lose sight of that light and that moment and that future thing. And even if that future thing is a journey, but if we lose that, that's when we're confused. And the seas, we start to become motion sickness because we don't have our eyes focused on this horizon. It's completely overwhelming.
Mm. Do you find that the thing that helps with clarity the most is resourcing back to your why?
Great question. Yeah. Why? Um, and coming back to two questions help me constantly, which is what would my 90-year-old self want me to do?
Mm.
And what does my 5-year-old self want me to do? Because my 90-year-old self is like, you got to go hard, you got to hit the home runs, like live the life well lived. But my 5-year-old self says, feel your life well felt.
That's powerful.
And so, yeah, good one.
Yeah. Because like you said, like, like your 90-year-old self, it wants to attain all of these things that you wish to do, that you are on step or on the journey to go and achieve. But then your 5-year-old self just wants to feel love. It wants to feel connection. And you've also got to, it's like a bit of a tug of war between the two. It's like, all right, we've got to go straight to the wall here and go full on here, but then also we've got to connect with ourselves and make sure we don't lose ourselves in that journey. It's constantly just, having them both in our own realms to keep it balanced so that we make sure when we are 90, we have achieved all that success, but we've also lived a fulfilled, loving life.
Yeah. And also get clear on what success really is, because there's a success and metrics of our society, but that's not what my 90-year-old self is going to be aligned with. My 90-year-old self is going to say, did you spend enough time with your family? Was it quality time? Were you present? Did you explore cultures that were important to you that made you feel full? Did you try new things that were really scary? Did you dance in the rain, or did you think that that was dorky? Did you think that the cringe was going to be too much? Like my 90-year-old self is actually quite critical with doing the things that scare me, and half-assing things. So she's kind of like a think like brutal old granny on like drinking even maybe a beer, and she's on the rocking chair and she's like, well, what are you doing? I go, oh, I'm doing this. I'm like, yeah, but what are you really doing? Like, cut the bullshit. What are you doing with your life? What do you want to do? What's meaningful to you? Like, she's so cutthroat. I'm like, oh, I'm doing acting. And then she's like, okay, but what acting? Like, why are you doing it? And then she holds me to that and she goes, are you half-assing it? I'm like, oh, not today. She's like, okay, do that tomorrow. And then my 5-year-old self was like, are you present today? What
Yeah.
did we do that was fun? So if I have them with me, I'm like, I kind of picture it like I've got this little team, and I also have my teenage self, which is not the one I try not to listen to her. She's like the angsty one. Then I have my old 90-year-old self one who's like intense, and then the 5-year-old who's like so present and wonderful and just living life.
Mm.
I've got my team. I'm good. Because I can also use them all for like any character.
You got your squad.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah,
all do.
yeah, 100%. And I love that too, how you said you got to define success, what it really means to you. Because I find in life we're rather the architecture or we're the outcome. And if we are the outcome, we are the outcome of the perception of success, right? Like what other people deem to be successful for us. Then we get to 90 years old, and then we're not fulfilled, we're not happy, and reflect back on life. And you think, maybe I should have lived a different way and figured out a way to actually achieve success of what that meant to me. Because when you first think of success, the first thing that comes to mind is the materialistic things. But for other
Mm.
people, it's like family, having grandkids, having healthy people around them, donating, or it can be so many different things, but it all comes down to what you define it as. And that's why I think in life, don't be the outcome of it, be the architect and build intentionally.
I adore that. And I think that's exactly what the old lady or the old man will be saying. And it's because I'm naturally drawn to finance, naturally drawn to the materialistic things that our culture tells us we value. And then that's when my granny comes in and she's like, your family. What are you doing? You haven't seen them, you haven't called them. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I'm gonna call my mom. Yeah,
When
okay.
when did you adopt like this way of thinking? Was it something from a young age? Was it something you had to develop over time, or was there a situation in life that pushed you into this way of thinking?
Great question. I think it's been refined over the years, and only in the last maybe year, 2 years has it become very clear with my 90-year-old self and my 5-year-old self. But prior to that, I always felt I lived by the no regrets philosophy because my biggest fear is getting to 90 and be like, oh my God, I totally dumb. I regret the way I lived my life. I became, if I stuck with paramedics, I'd be like, I was exhausted and drained and I wasn't even present with half the people that I was working with. What the hell? Like that's not what I wanted to do. I never stopped and actually thought about it. That is a fear. Or doing like an office job that makes me feel dead inside. Terrifying. Uh, and I think I always had this like I need to do something that means something to me. Otherwise, I there's no point in doing it. And so I had that from a young age, but I think it only really developed in high school when I started going through adolescence and I started feeling like the angst and the anxiety and the depression symptoms come on. And I struggled with my mental health quite a lot in high school. And so as that happened, I realized that I got this weird clarity that I think a lot of people get when they go through dark times, which is, oh, life is really short. Nothing matters. We're actually on a rock. What the hell am I doing? Why am I not living for me?
Yeah.
Like, why am I living for this weird perception of what I think the world thinks I should be? What the hell is that? Because I've also made that up.
Yeah.
Because no matter where you go in a different culture, they're going to expect me to be something or someone. And so it's my perception of how I think I should be is made up. I've made it up. So I'm like, I'm holding myself to a standard that I don't want. What? And so I think I came to that realization when I was like 14. And I was like, I want to leave high school and get a van and a dog and travel around Australia. I've never done that. But I did move to Tasmania and then I moved to Perth and then I moved to Vancouver and then I moved to New York. So I've done lots of things.
Well, you've done the
It's just
traveling
not,
part.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's just not exactly how I thought it would pan out.
Because like you said before, you you want to go do something that means something, you want to pursue because you don't want to just be floating on this rock and just doing dead end things that don't fulfill you. So my question is like, in wanting to do something that does mean something, was there a certain story you had to tell yourself to take action? Because I find a lot of people want something bigger in life, but there's a certain story that they repeat in their own mind that holds them back. Was there a story you did tell yourself to be able to go and take the action? Maybe it was an affirmation, maybe it was a vision board. Was there a certain thing that really helped you take the action?
I think a very powerful thing that we all have is our name because we get to define what that means.
Mm,
And I say my own name to myself and I ask myself what I want that to mean to me.
mm,
And that motivates me a lot. I'm
yeah,
like, okay, I'm a Saskia Archer. What does that mean? What does that mean to me? And how am I going to show up as that?
yeah.
And that's also like there's a little pressure there, but that's when the old lady comes in, that's when the kid comes in. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna live fully today. What does that look like? But in terms of a memory, I think there isn't one defining memory that helps me make that jump. I think in the moments that I'm scared and I'm not sure how I'm going to do the leap, whatever that might be, um, I just do it scared.
Mm,
And
love
I
that.
and I know that the moment that you are scared and you're like, I still kind of want to I want to do it. I'm just scared now. And I'm like, okay, now I have to do it. And a great example of this, which is a bad example, I'm not my advice is not to go do this, but I could never do a backflip, never done that. But in Perth one year, I watched all my friends do backflips. And one of the boys was like, "Do you want to do a backflip?" And I was like, "I can't do a backflip." He's like, "It's okay, I'll help you." And he actually did. We went to, they all had access to this like gymnasium and there was like a foam pit. He's like, "This is what you do, this is what you do." And I like kind of got it after like 20 goes. And then that afternoon, we went to like the bay and there was a big jump and everyone's doing backflips off it. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do it. But I watched them all do it and I realized, okay, it's definitely safe. My fear now is not in the act of it. I actually know what my body can do, the movement. My fear is now in me. So I didn't have data to suggest that I shouldn't do it. So I had to just do it scared. And I did it scared. And I absolutely messed it up and I face planted. And I was in so much pain because you like face plant on the water and I was like, oh no. And I came up and everyone's going, ooh, like definitely embarrassing moment. And then I come to the shore and one of the guys is like, are you okay? Like what's going on? Are you? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And I like my body's like red from slapping the water, but I'm fine. And then he's like, you okay? You guys, you want to sit onto the side with the girls? And I was like, no, 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 no. I actually think I need to do it again. And he's like, what are you talking about? And the reason I said that I think I need to do it again is like, if that was really scary. If I don't do it again, I'll think I never can again because I messed it up the first time. But if I do it again, I know I can do it again after that because I've broken through the barrier. It wasn't a fluke. The first time was scary, but the second time is scarier if I've messed up the first time. So to fail twice, I think is a golden number now because that means I've actually seen it through. And the second time I came to it, I was really scared. And this time I was terrified because I was like, okay, I can only half do it. And I really hurt myself. I was like, I just have to pretend my fear isn't there. And I did that exactly. Oh, and I did the jump, and the same thing happened, and I face planted on my face, but I had a lot more fun doing it. And and then I knew that, and I still know that if I need to do the thing, I can do the thing again.
Yeah, that's important too. Whether your belief system says you're capable of succeeding or whatever it is in that thing, you can still give it a go and try.
Yeah. And I think like the success to doing the backflip was inconsequential. The achievement was how terrified I was and that I did the thing.
Mm,
I think that the failure would have been to walk away.
I love that because that is a perfect example of the actions that we do today give evidence to our future self. You know, so your future self is looking back at what you're doing today or what you've done in the past as evidence of who we believe we are. And that's why if you take the action today and you live fully, can you imagine all the evidence future you is going to have in a year's time? Like you're going to be like unstoppable.
Yeah, like I can do this. I can do the scared thing. It's also like you get more comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And I want to feel comfortable in the uncomfort because the only constant thing we're going to have is change. And so if change is always coming and I'm always going to be thrown, if I can find comfort and clarity in that, life hack.
100%. And the uncomfort doesn't last forever. I can imagine your first day on set is completely different to your day now on set. You know, the first day you rocked up, you might have been nervous, but now you probably rock up to set and you're excited. At the end of the day, nervous and excited are the same thing. It's just basically how we perceive it, right? And now, like the first day you did it to now, the comfort changed over time.
It does. Absolutely. I'm sure it's the same with podcasting and performing in that way.
Yeah, 100%. So I did a live podcast in front of an audience. So I had like three guests and we had an audience of 50 people. I remember when I did that was my first ever time doing like I've done public speaking before, but never a live podcast. And I was absolutely shitting myself. I was like, you gotta do it anyway, you know, do it scared. I did it scared and it
Yes.
always works out better than you imagine. And I think as a creative, sometimes you can overthink things to an extent where you become a bit of a perfectionist. And also, it's like, no, let your creativity side come back into play and be free flowing with it and try not to over perfect things as well. I find once I get that balance, things become a lot easier, just not overthinking too much.
Yeah. And not, yeah, the perfectionist thing is a real problem. I'm just gonna turn the light on here so we can see a little bit.
All good.
It's getting dark. How's that?
That's great.
I was gonna say there's also that makes me think of something else that I think about and I spoke recently, which was with motivation, because a lot of people say like, oh, how do you find motivation? Like what inspires motivation? And I think motivation comes from action, like afterwards.
Hmm.
Like I definitely find my way once I've started on the way.
Yeah.
If I'm waiting for it, it doesn't come.
No, it never does. 'Cause, like even yourself with acting and myself with podcasting, like if I never started doing podcasting, like I probably would not have had the motivation to go and do and to keep going and to keep meeting people. The amount of skills it teaches you along the way, like I find the journey is always better than the destination usually. Have you found that with
Yes,
acting?
absolutely. Because there is no destination.
Mm.
The reason I'm so drawn to acting as a career and as a continual like form is because it's changing, it's different, and get to do different characters. So to do one thing and to say that it's over feels so counterintuitive. That's like defeats the whole purpose of doing acting. Like the joy of being able to age with my characters as well fascinates me. I look at characters like actors like Judy Dench and the characters she plays. I'm like, I could never do that unless I was near that age and like near that life experience. And that's so inspiring.
Yeah, that's true too. Because every time you film in a movie or TV series, that you can play, you're playing a completely different actor, actress with a lot of different actors and actresses as well, different production teams. So like everything's new as well and evolving, which is awesome. I find that with podcasting because one week I'm interviewing, you know, like Jim's group, like Jim's Moen, the franchise in Australia.
Hmm.
Yeah, I interviewed Jim, like the actual Jim. Then the next week, now I'm interviewing Saskia, you know, like two different worlds, but it's just so interesting, like how many different people you meet and talk to. And I can imagine it's the same with the work that you do.
Yeah, it is. And also there's like even in the different departments, I think that's the beauty of set is different from theater a little bit. So with set, you go into costume, you go into the usually costume studio or a truck if you're on location, and you get to talk to the costume people. Uh, they're always from such interesting backgrounds. Like costume is fascinating. It's a total different art form, like how much of story you can tell with just a piece of clothing, and also how it's worn and how the actors interact with it as well. And And that's, I get to interact with them, and then I get to take their knowledge, put it on my body, and then use that in a scene.
Mm.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Take
I
that
love
knowledge
doing
and you
that.
be creative with it.
Yeah, and it's also fun to like, especially in the spaces where you can collaborate, and you get directors that are a little bit more open with flexibility with those kind of things. You go, I would like to do this with this costume, and the costume said they might want to. How do you feel? And they're like, yeah, go for it, do whatever you want. And then you come up with these really unique spaces, and your character ends up becoming like way more human, more flawed, more interesting, and that's why we're there,
Hmm.
to make something interesting.
Yeah, it must take like a quite a creative mind, because like with yourself with creativity, where do you feel like it does become most alive? Is it on set, writing, observing life, or is it somewhere unexpected? Like where do you feel like your creativity comes most alive?
There's something that happens when the camera starts rolling. And I have a theory of why this is, but what happens is all of the inhibitions leave me, and I get to be the most raw, unencumbered human version of myself in the form of a character. And that always lights me up because you're navigating different memories, different backstory, different subtext, different relationships, and yet your emotions are authentic. So you're like creating something real in your body in that moment in time with completely fake scenarios that you've just invested in. And that creative space with the pressure of a camera, and you can't leave that state, is really invigorating because you're constantly investing in this new person, this new timeline, this new world. And the reason I think all of the walls go is because on screen you have this strange permission to exist as a flawed, interesting human. Versus, I think there's a lot of pressure in our life to exist not as flawed humans. We have to be perfect. We have to show up. We have to be pleasant to deal with constantly. We have to, we can't be raw, emotional, loud, chaotic, messy. There's a lot of pressure to be a certain way. And so, what's so beautiful about the creativity that comes with when the camera starts rolling is that all of that falls away. All my societal rules are gone. I'm allowed to cry. I'm allowed to scream. I'm allowed to feel angry and to show that diversity of emotion that we actually all feel. We usually just pile on top of it. And also, I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to pile on the way a character might pile on, which is different for everybody. Like how she navigates grief. Is she ashamed of it? Is she kind of weirdly invested in her grief? Does she feel like a victim love with her grief that makes her feel somehow more valuable, more lovable? Um, or does she hate it? Does it make her feel like she now hates herself because she has that relationship with grief? Like there's just such a complexity in the way we navigate one emotion, and we're constantly involved with multiple at one time. And I think that's when I'm most creative.
I love that. That's very interesting as well. Like you can step into roles where it is like okay to feel your emotions, like your actual raw, authentic emotions in reality. Do you find like acting is also like therapeutic too?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm allowed to feel, and there's a very strong rule in the acting society that you leave your shit at the door. You leave your baggage and you come and do the work. And I think that is bullshit
Mm.
because you can't.
Yeah.
Shout out to one of my mentors, Donald Woodburn, who never let me or any of his people that he worked with like leave our stuff at the door. He was like, "You are a complex human. Bring that in. Use that." And I was like, "Great," because I can't not. Like, I can't pretend that I'm not who I am. Like, this is the whole point of acting, and the way I approach acting is that I get to be super ridiculously raw. Um, so love that I can do that, and the acting gives me the space
Mm.
to be that. And I also think that's for me why I do acting, because if I'm authentically like expressing myself in a very raw human way that's flawed and unique to me, then someone somewhere is probably going to resonate with that. And whether they resonate with that because they're disturbed by something and then that brings them comfort, that brings them some kind of validation that lets them know that they're not alone, it's hugely powerful. You're bringing someone a sense of comfort that they can't find elsewhere for whatever reason in that moment. And I love that.
Has acting ever helped you process an emotion that you never knew that you had to process?
Yes. Yes, definitely. I had like something that acting, okay, so how do I word this? I don't think women are generally in society allowed to feel anger all that much. Or if they are, they're usually put to the side as being crazy. And you're like, they're not seen. Um, Perhaps neither are men, actually. Anger is a very complex emotion that we demonize quickly or we gaslight. And I did a character once that was definitely allowed to be angry. It was a character called Young Elizabeth in a play called When the Rain Stops Falling by Andrew Bovell. It's a beautiful play. I would highly recommend reading it. It's one of the only plays that has made me cry from reading a play. And it's to read a play it's this thick.
Yeah.
But it was really, really beautiful. And she's allowed to be very, very angry because she finds out that the partner who she has a son with is and in amongst photos of he has this sexual and she finds these photos of all these young boys. Amongst the photos is a photo of her son, their son. And she's very, very, very angry. A very complex type of anger. And my director really pushed me to go access that anger. And I just thought I couldn't do it. But usually, when you can't access a certain emotion, I think it's because it's blocked. And the reason it's blocked is because it's actually there and it's actually loud. And why that is, I'm not 100% sure. Probably, a culmination of several things as I grew up. And and having the chance to express that in a very aggressive, raw um, way, where I was encouraged to scream, a very angry scream, a very threatening scream, was incredibly cathartic because I don't think we're ever encouraged to do something like that.
Yeah, well, that's powerful.
Mm.
I love that because, like you said, anger's not a bad emotion. No emotions are bad or good. It just depends what we do with them. Like happiness could also become bad depending on what makes you happy and what you do with it and what your motives are. And the same thing with anger. If anger is a thing that helps you motivate you to, I don't know, change your life and do something inspirational, then anger can actually be a really good thing. I find the reason a lot of people do
Yeah.
have it in the background and suppress it, like you're talking about there, is maybe the shame and guilt that we attach to it subconsciously because of the perception of anger that we grew up with. We've always told it's bad and we can't act in certain ways or we can't express ourselves. Then we start to shame and guilt it. And I find, when you do express it in ways that are healthy with yourself, like in places like acting or going to the gym or expressing it in healthy ways, then it can be very powerful.
Yeah, I love that. And something interesting about acting, I'm sorry, anger that I've learned. Anger for me usually is a secondary emotion, and there's something underneath that. And I've noticed it a few times when I've watched actors do things that we call breakthroughs. And I've also seen it in some of my girlfriends who have gone through something really hard and they're angry. They're so angry at something. And then this moment drops and the anger goes and they go, I'm not even fucking angry. I'm I'm sad. Like, why would that person do that to me? Why did I go through that? Disbelief, grief, anguish, shame. Like, there's always something actually far more painful. And anger, I feel, is the fighting and railing against it. It's really important to have that anger. And I think it makes us human.
Mm.
Because what other animal experiences that?
Yeah, 100%.
But we know that they experience some emotions, but to have our anger, which is our how we fight against other emotions. I think that might be one of the things that literally makes us human. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. It's taking that and allowing it to be there because it's not bad, but I think the suppression of it is bad.
Yeah.
It's how we let it out that there's all these ideas about, and I think there's definitely healthy ways to do it. I mean, rage rooms also. I haven't tried that, but I definitely want to. They look fun.
Same. They look real good.
Yeah, they look great. Just smashing stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes those escape rooms can become a rage room if you can't figure it out as well.
True. I have also never done one.
Yeah. But also, like, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, we're allowed to be human and feel things, but also it seems like acting for yourself has really taught a lot about your own self. I'm also curious around the other side of it, stepping into a character. And stepping into a character and acting, have you learned anything from a character that's really helped you in your own life?
And I learn something from every single character I do. That young Elizabeth one taught me a lot about the strength because I had this idea, especially as a young adult, that it was a very binary way of thinking about strength, which was in, a masculine, feminine way. And I'm like, men are strong, women are not strong, physically, muscle. Blah, blah, blah. And it came from probably the paramedics being like, oh, this is the amount of muscle mass on this muscle thing. And I didn't take into consideration the neurons in the brain. And so there's like, I think women have more neurons in the frontal lobe or something like that. Um, and where that strength comes out and the reasoning and the moment that that character really executed that and the way that that power dynamic completely shifted and that character, I don't believe in any timeline could have fought against her in any way because the strength and the energy that she came with emotion and the moment the state that he was in, he couldn't. He was he's like, I have nothing to fight for. I have nothing left. You're gone. You were the last thing in my life. You ask me what would I fight for?
Yeah.
And it was so interesting to me, this like concept of strength. So in realizing how strong I am inherently, as we all are, which is I think a self-discovery that we all go on in our own, came from that character, but also from that director, Peggy, because she really pushed me to go where she could see I could go that I couldn't see I could go.
Yeah.
So that's really, I'm really grateful for that. But then with Hannah Beth, something that I learned, and again, you discover it of yourself because you're discovering your own humanity through a character. But she was incredibly brave. But it wasn't just that. She's very, very selfless in the way that she fights to make the world a better place. So, for example, she lost her partner to the Bali bombings, and a year later, she's sitting across from Tony Blair doing an interview, and fighting against him, essentially convincing him not to go to war. That's a huge thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, and to speak the way she spoke so clearly, so calmly about something that meant something to every single cell in her body. I she's incredible to me because the fact that she could navigate her emotions in such an emotionally strong place and communicate so clearly about something that mattered so deeply to her and that nuance at the same time in that moment, I think it's astounding. And I actually don't know if I could do that. But but I like to think that when we are pushed to spaces, we rise to the challenge.
100%
And
we
I think
rise
that
to it.
that's what I took away.
How do you even prepare yourself for a character like that, like playing off someone that's based on the real story? Like does it come down with sitting down with Hannah Beth and doing interviews with her and connecting with her? And like, how did that process happen?
Yeah. I did interview her. I did ask her a lot of questions, but she also wrote a book. And the book was great because I didn't really want her to have to go through the trauma. I didn't want her to have to go through the nitty-gritty, the awful moments in her life that she doesn't want to relive. So I asked her a lot of questions about who she is, but I didn't ask her questions about what it was like because I got a lot of that information from her book and I could piece it enough together as seeing images and seeing things and having the scene in front of me that I felt that I could do it on my own to a degree. But the way that I approached in that particular character is I always write down the similarities and the differences between myself as a character. And I own and I enhance the similarities of both of us. And when it comes to the differences, I work on them. So I figure out, okay, why are they doing those things? Why do I need to bridge the gap? So for example, something that I needed to bridge was when the bomb first goes off, she goes, she gets up, crawls, and instead of going to find her partner who she thinks has died in that moment or could be dead or could be injured, she's helping the people around her. And in the meantime, she's kind of calling out to her partner, but she's helping the people at her feet. And that is beyond selfless. Like, that's the definition, if anything. And so I had to find why, how powerful must your presence be to the people around you that you are there to help them when a loved one, a deep loved one, is potentially injured, harmed, and needs you feet away, 50 feet away, somewhere nearby. Uh, so that was like in my head, I was like, oh, I'd do it differently. I'd go find my partner, but you don't know that. And so I had to go, okay, well, Annabeth wrote in her book that deep down she felt that Mark had gone. She just had a gut feeling. So I lent into that that momentary denial, grief, guttural feeling and instinct that somehow he wasn't here anymore and that the people at my feet that I need to help are more important than that feeling. So essentially it just came down to identifying problems and spaces to gap and then bridging that gap. Because if I bridge that gap, then I bring something and I can do the action that makes sense to me, and then the scene ends up making sense because we'll read everything that I think and feel.
Well, I'm just being a bit curious around, cautious around time here. So I've got one more question before we get into our Q&A. But on the back of that, like how do you step out of the emotions involved in acting the role like that specifically, you know, like going home and not taking it home with you? Like, is there a certain ritual that you have to do? Is there a certain action that you do to really help you step out of the emotion of acting?
Great question. Something that I learned on that set was working with Claudia Jessie, uh, who she played Polly in there. She's, I think, most well known for her role in Bridgerton, but she's a fantastic actor. And I asked her, I was like, "How do you do it? How do you step out?" She said, "I have a roll up," and I was
Roll
like,
up.
"Oh, that's way more simple than what I've been doing. A roll up, like
Yeah.
just a sugary roll up." And so I tried it. I there's I and it kind of worked. And so now what my since doing that project, my process to stepping out of an intense scene is I let the emotions run out, which essentially means they're going to call cut. But if I'm crying, I'm going to keep crying until that's gone, and I'm going to shake my body because it like I don't know how, but maybe it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, resets the vagus nerve, all of the things. You just shake and cry, let the body reset, and within usually like 10 seconds I'm back to normal, and then I have a roll up thanks to Connie and Jesse, and I feel like me again.
That's important 'cause you have to do something like normal to you, you know, after it. It's like kind of just like trigger your brain or your parasympathetic nervous system, trigger it to get to a point where it's like, all right, we're back in our own life, we're back in our own body, like, you know, and separate the two.
And also forgive myself when the character does bleed because every now and then it does. I'm like, oh, that. I'm like, why am I so focused on that? I'm like, oh, that character would be focusing on that. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna notice that. Okay, that's not really my thought. That's okay.
Yeah.
Nope. Because I think when I link myself too much to it, I get too. I don't know. It doesn't help me get through it. It kind of shames me out of it, which then kind of inadvertently makes me feel that feeling more.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like the opposite of what you're trying to
Yeah.
do. But we got a community Q&A. It's a quick fire one. So OneTalk community send through questions of each guest that come on. So we have about 5 questions to go through, and then we'll shoot through them if you're ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first one is, what's a role you'd love to play?
The role I'd love to play is a biopic of any kind of actor. There's a few in mind. I love Charlize Theron's journey. Sharon Stone's journey would be great. I'd love to do a live action kind of remake of the Lara Croft energy action movie. And of course, if they make Akatar, which is a book series by Sarah J. Maas, I would like to play more, which is a character in there who, if any listeners have read this, she's pretty epic and she would be a lot of fun.
Our next question is, if the version of you today could give one piece of advice to the version of you on your very first day on set, what would she say?
Actually, think about that for a second. Sorry, not very quick fire answer.
It's all good.
I hope you can edit it.
Yeah.
Pretend that the camera is not on you, but it's on your co-star. You're giving them all of your energy. If you get stuck, do that because it's not about you, it's about the story. And it's about the characters in front of you.
Love that. Last question. It's from me. I ask everyone, but I think we've already answered it. But how do you define success?
I don't actually think I don't know if we can answer this. For me, how do I define success? I define success by showing up as who I am and who I want to be and linking those two people. Because if I deny who I am today, then I shame myself and I don't get anywhere. But if I don't have a connection with who I am in the future, then I don't have my direction. So if I have my both, my success in my journey. And if I do that consistently, I know everything else just falls into place.
Love that. Well, Saskia, thank you for coming on the OneTalk podcast. I appreciate your time. I've enjoyed this podcast. We've had a lot of cool conversations, and hopefully in a couple of years have you come back on.
This was an absolute delight. Thank you so much.
No worries at all. Thank you.